You all remember The Matrix, right? That movie that, came out a quarter of a century ago? Of course you have, it's a cultural classic, a movie that actually made you excited to go to the cinema, which is more than most movies can say for themselves these days. If you're like me and have rewatched this movie at all recently, you're probably left with one singular question. Is The Matrix actually real? Could the world of The Matrix actually happen? Considering the advent and hype surrounding AI these days, these questions sound much more relevant than they did 25 years ago. Well, in this video, I want to take apart the world of The Matrix and the technology and ideas presented in it and see if there is any merit to any of these questions. In particular, if the simulated world called The Matrix is something that is technologically achievable. So sit back and let's see if this movie was onto something here. Our man, Mr. Neo, is an underground computer hacker searching for important questions of his own. What is the Matrix? Who is the man who calls himself Morpheus? He wakes up to odd messages on his computer. He follows a trail of clues to meet Trinity, a mysterious woman who tells him that the truth is out there. Strange men in black suits stalk Neo as he closes in on the answers. Eventually, he meets Morpheus, who helps him open his eyes to see the world as it actually is. The truth? Even more shocking than he could ever imagine. It is here that we learn that the Matrix is real, a simulated, fake world pulled over human eyes to hide them from the truth. As for the real world, overrun and controlled by sentient machines. Machines that use humans themselves as batteries, an energy source to keep themselves alive. This harsh truth sends Neo into denial. I mean, who wouldn't be a little bit peeved after finding out your entire world has been a lie? But we won't go too much into that here. The psychology of the Matrix is content enough for an entirely separate video. There you have it, folks. The world of the Matrix is the Matrix, a computerized simulation through which almost the entire human race is connected to. So could the Matrix actually become a reality in our own world? Is it even possible? Well, in my opinion, the absolute best way to answer this question is to break down the technology postulated in the movie and compare it to our own technology in the real world. From here, it should be pretty easy to see whether or not a Matrix-like simulation is possible now or going into the future. We can also use this current-day understanding to see the possibility of some of the more sinister technologies depicted in the movie, like human batteries becoming a reality. The Matrix in the movie is described as a neural interactive simulation, meaning the humans in the movie can connect to a digital world through their nervous system, through their brain. That's why the humans that can go there all have connecting ports on the back of their heads. There are essentially 5 basic things you need to do to recreate the Matrix. The first thing you would need to do to bring this into a reality is create a one-to-one copy of the real world in a digital space. Every rock, every tree, every animal species, and all of the behaviors that come along with them. You would also need to recreate convincing renderings of things like physics and biology, and how all of the little things like this interact with each other. That sounds like a tremendous amount of work for even the most advanced programmers and teams out there. Even if you have all of the best computer programmers and game developers in the world working simultaneously for their entire careers, I would still doubt their capacity to recreate Earth to the convincing degrees necessary to blind its inhabitants. Like the movie itself suggests, this would probably have to be a job for artificial intelligence. AI could work a lot faster and more accurately to do this type of work. Number 2, graphics. In order for an Earth simulation to trick its users, it has to look real. This means having the ability to use unprecedented photorealistic graphics is a must. Now, I do have to admit, computer graphics have grown exponentially since the release of the movie. We have went from the low polygon era of the PlayStation 1 and N64 of 1999 to the impressively stunning graphics of modern-day computers and consoles. In fact, many games and graphics do indeed appear to be starting to use photorealistic graphics. Unfortunately, even these graphics would not be good enough for the Matrix. Why? Because they are often limited to perspective and scaling, meaning the more you zoom in on these graphics, the quicker you realize how fake they are. The graphics of a real-life Matrix would have to have full scalability down to the microscopic level. So if the people inside the simulation decided to have a closer look at their world, their immersion would not be hampered. This would be hard to accomplish, yes, and looks almost impossible to do. Using techniques in video game design like selective culling could be used here, so you only have to render what the observer is looking at instead of an object in its entirety down to its atoms. This way, if someone decided to look through a microscope or really close at an object, you would only essentially have to render the details of what they're seeing at any given time. But even so, there are so many variables. A real-life Matrix would almost have to have a fully rendered world on standby, a world as detailed down to the very cells in our body. That said, current generations of computers don't seem like they would be powerful enough to handle these types of scalable graphics and commands. Maybe when quantum computers become a thing, they will be. Again, it also looks like AI would be helpful there to streamline the production of graphics like that. Number 3. AI. In order for the world of the Matrix to function on its own and behave according to its established rules without fail, it will need intelligent software and artificial sentience. This is best exemplified through the movie's depiction of Agent Smith, described as a sentient program whose purpose is to hunt down anomalies within the Matrix and maintain order within it. If the goal of the Matrix is to maintain the illusion, the last thing you would want is anyone questioning its verity. Search and destroy. Agent Smith aside, artificial intelligence would just be useful in general in keeping the world of the Matrix operational. Such software could be used to address or fix any unforeseen problems that arrive within the simulation. In other words, free-thinking machine learning seems almost like a necessity, especially if the creator of a Matrix wants it to be self-sustaining without human intervention. Are we at that technological point in real life yet? Far from it, but it might be disingenuous to completely rule out the possibility that AI will reach that point. Who knows? Number 4. Storage and mainframe. To make the world of the Matrix, you are going to need lots and lots of data and somewhere to store it. Seriously, I don't even know how much data a one-to-one recreation of the Earth would even look like. Billions of terabytes? Trillions? Regardless, you need somewhere to store this data, and the answer to this might look something like real-world server farms, the likes of which are used by things like cloud data services and even video games like World of Warcraft. These server farms would be expansive and numerous to account for backups. From these servers would emit a connection through which humans could connect to and stay connected. Out of all of the technology required to build the Matrix, the storage seems like the easiest and most possible, as we already have real-world examples to look towards. So you've done it. You've created the virtual world of the Matrix. You made it using photorealistic, scaling graphics. You have it all stored on server farms around the globe. Now, you only have one thing left to do. Number 5, neural interactive connections. The final step to bring the Matrix into reality is figure out a way to connect the brains of humans to the virtual world and keep them there. In the movie, this connection is, in part, physical. Humans have connections on the back of their heads through which a plug is attached to interface with their brains. From there, they are able to connect to the servers of the Matrix. The movie calls it neural interactive because it essentially allows for the complete transmission of all the senses from the brain into the digital world. It all sounds very dreamlike. So I'm just going to come out and state the obvious. No technology currently exists that is even fractionally capable of doing this. Right now, we are in the Stone Age of computer-to-brain interfacing. Sure, the world has accomplished some really impressive feats. Just in February of this year, the company Neuralink has stated that the first human patient with a brain chip can move a computer mouse using their thoughts. But this is nowhere near the technology needed to bring the Matrix to life. Other important nervous system technologies like cochlear implants and rudimentary bionic eyes exist, but those are more outward technologies rather than the inward-facing ones that would allow us to experience our senses internally, artificially. All this being said, what these examples do show us is the potential for computerized technological connections to our nervous system. But, sorry to say, out of all of the requirements needed to make the Matrix a reality, this one seems the most unlikely, the one that seems the most science fiction until this technology proves to us otherwise. Now, while this is a very basic list of items that would be required to create a version of the Matrix of our own, it gives you a basic idea of how it might be structured. Looking back on these categories, we can clearly see that we aren't quite there yet technologically with most of them. The exception being storage and mainframe technology that might be sophisticated enough if it were built on a large enough scale. So what about all of the other nightmarish visions from the movie? Can humans be used as batteries? Well, according to thermodynamics, the answer is no, because energy cannot be created nor destroyed. What this means is that machines using humans as an energy source is a pretty stupid idea because they simply would not get that much net positive energy out of us. Sorry, AI dictators, but we're not going to be used to power your dystopian Sims game. On the note of stupid ideas, does anyone else want to know whose moronic idea it was to scorch the skies and block out the sun? I mean, you could almost argue that it was that idiot's bright idea that caused the machines to enslave humanity as batteries in the first place. Was that you, Bill? But theoretically, if machines couldn't use solar power or humans as an energy source, what would they use? My guess would be some sort of nuclear power. So if they still want to enslave humanity for the heck of it, they probably still could. Man versus machine. Good versus evil. It seems like humanity has a growing fascination and concern over this idea. Again, why the Matrix still holds relevancy to this day, in both pop culture and in the real sciences. Will AI become our greatest enemy? I can't see into the future, but what I can say is this. Many of our concerns about artificial intelligence and robot uprisings are still firmly grounded in science fiction. Key word, fiction. It also seems far more relevant to be concerned about human use of AI in negative ways rather than of AI itself. Humans have a far bigger track record of evil than machines themselves do. So what about the Matrix itself? Is it possible? It seems very unlikely, to be honest. While many technologies needed to create the Matrix are theoretically possible, many aspects of it clearly still stand in the realm of fiction. Case in point being a computer to neural connection. Could I be wrong? Maybe, but I think I can confidently say that we probably won't see that technology fully realized in our lifetimes. Also, if the far future does create some rudimentary version of the Matrix, it's probably not going to look like it does in the movie, and no, machines aren't going to be using us as batteries. So if you were concerned about our future, don't be. I think we will be just fine. In the movie, it is stated that the Matrix went through several versions of itself before it found the one that humans would accept, that there was a utopian Matrix that humans apparently rejected. It was a disaster, Agent Smith boldly declares. No one would accept the program. Entire crops were lost. Some believed that we lacked the programming language to describe your perfect world. But I believe that as a species, human beings define their reality through misery and suffering. He does make a point here. Many people in real life do opine the idea that human experience is one of suffering. But at the same time, I also find it hard to believe that our minds would reject a more perfect world, finding it too good to be true. So in conclusion, I want to ask you what you think. If we eventually had the technology to create our own world, our own matrix, what would it look like? Would it look like just the one we live in? How would you create it? Or are these questions just too complex to answer because everyone would have a different idea of what the perfect world would look like? Or maybe, perhaps humans just aren't meant to create simulated worlds on this scale, especially ones that we would always be connected to. After all, even the most perfect digital world would still not be the real one. Reality matters, doesn't it? Or is Cypher the one we should be listening to when he says, "Ignorance is bliss"? Let me know what you think down below. Thanks for watching.